Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? This is NBA Wednesday. That's the best part about this show. I get to keep track of the days by saying at the start of every show. Bread Slinger. Let's start off. Like last night was bleh. And it's weird. Like on the pre-lock show, at least for me, it was. I know there were some DFS members who definitely still had some success. I know Scott Newman had some success with the early slate. I know we had some members make like $500 here and there as well, which is really good. So definitely a good night for some guys. For me, it was not a good night. I know for a lot of us it wasn't. We were really, really heavy on the Utah Jazz, and they freaking sucked. But oddly enough, this is the Nuts winning lineup from yesterday, and I've wasted way too much time back testing today. There were some pieces we got right here. John Morant was one of them. Kelly O was definitely in our lines. Lauri Markkanen was not good yesterday, but somehow made the Nuts lineup. Jakob Poeltl made it. Jalen Brunson. Jakob Poeltl was probably one of the logical surprises. He definitely was in our pools, but he wasn't popping a ton because we were higher on some of the other centers on the slate. But he definitely was a little bit of a surprise. It made sense based on some of the injuries and some things that kind of made sense with the rotations there, but whatever. When I was back testing, I realized I wasn't on Terrence Davis. Murray got hurt during the game, and Terrence Davis came in, started at the second half, and went off. Without Terrence Davis, I wasn't going to win first place, really, no matter what. Those of you guys who have been playing DFS for a while, you guys know. We have these losing slates sometimes. We have these cold streaks. And then sometimes we go on super hot streaks. My biggest piece of advice is always I try not to get too high or low when I'm on a high streak or a hot streak or a cold streak. I like to try to just stay mellow and stay calm. I had my freak out moments like last night. I had a little bit of a rant and I need to vent because I was a little frustrated, but you just got to have your moment and move on. And like I said, Scott freaking crushed. Congrats to you, man. But moving on, congrats to my guy B-Dubs. He's always in the Discord chat. He was on Trey Murphy last night, and that was a great call. And it made a ton of sense. When Zion was out, it made a ton of sense to move on to Trey Murphy. Moving on to this slate, though, care a lot more about that just because I already talked about Terrence Davis. If you didn't have any exposure to him, then you had no chance of winning. So moving on to this slate is fun. I actually kind of am excited about this slate and feeling cautiously optimistic, even though it's a gigantic slate. We have enough news and there's plenty of news we're waiting on that this could end up being a fun slate. So let's dig into it. Let's start with this first game, Pacers versus the Hornets. This is one of the higher total games, or the highest total. Second highest total game on the slate as of right now, and tied with one of the fastest pace games on this slate. The two fastest pace games on this slate are the Hornets versus Pacers and the Knicks versus the Nuggets. So this is going to be a game that we can target and we can get exposure to these guys. And you can already tell the DS is liking some of these guys based on the fantasy points over dollar value that's showing up. Tyrese Halliburton, I always like to start off with him. He's questionable, so of course we have to keep an eye on that. Miles Turner is the big on this slate that gets to face the Hornets, so he'll definitely have some exposure. He'll be some guys that will hot. He'll be a guy that we're considering for sure. Love playing bigs against the Hornets. LaMelo Ball saw 34 minutes in his return last game, and I don't know. I wasn't really surprised by that, but it was definitely good to see. He didn't crush the slate. He wasn't super efficient or anything like that, but it was nice to see him at least getting the minutes. So you can start to trust that a little bit more. We're not getting a discount on LaMelo Ball here, but again, this is a nice environment, nice game environment. We can definitely still consider him from a tournament standpoint. Outside of that, the guys like Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre, PJ Washington, Mason Plumlee, the rest of the guys on this team, given the really good value in some of the other spots I like on this slate, they're guys that I'm still high on, but not as high on as some other spots. For me, I like the Pacer guys a little bit more here. Moving forward, Ooh, the Timberwolves against the Magic. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this game. I don't know if anyone's watched the Timberwolves, but they've been god awful. I didn't even talk about it, but there's this one play where Anthony Edwards had his hands on his hip for the entire offensive play, and he just stood there with his hands on his hips. He didn't even try. He didn't do anything. It's getting rough. I don't know what drama's going on, and it doesn't really matter from a DFS standpoint, but God, they are hard to watch. Already, guys like Rudy Gobert, he's standing out a ton on DraftKings. The Magic, they're really bad at defending against big men in general. And Rudy Gobert is cheaper than we've seen him. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I haven't seen Rudy Gobert this cheap in a long time. And I'm definitely willing. He's had some strong games this season. And like I said, this is a great matchup for him. More than happy to go back to him. Karl Anthony Towns had a good game last time out as well. Granted, and it was against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and so that's pretty impressive. Cat is more of a GPP tournament play for me. I trust Rudy Gobert's floor a little bit more, and Rudy Gobert is much cheaper than Karl Anthony Towns as well, so Cat has to do a lot more. But really, I'm considering this game is interesting because both of these teams aren't great. There will be some ceiling performances. The important news here is like Wendell Carter Jr. is questionable. Of course, like Paolo Banchero is still questionable on the Magic. So there's a ton of injury news that we're going to have to dig into before we really figure out what this game is going to look like. But overall, Rudy Gobert is the only guy that really stands out for me that I'm probably going to focus on. But again, guys, like Scott talks about it with his process. My process is a little bit different. I'm not a process guy, but we're not really Xing out too many people in our pool. We're letting the DS really decide what we're doing. But then for me, I like to find spots that are ceiling spots I really want to focus on and increase exposure to. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this for those of you who may not know. All right, moving forward. Oklahoma City Thunder against the Washington Wizards. Bradley Beal should be coming back. Let me double check. Louise, let's see. Paolo Banchero. Yeah, he is officially ruled out. You are correct. So yeah, that's good to know. With him being fully ruled out, Wendell Carter Jr. is questionable still. So I do want to know what happens there. If Wendell Carter Jr. ends up being out, that might be a spot we want to target a lot. IMAX, unfortunately, we don't break down the FanDuel slate on a different stream/show as of yet. Scott said, we hate FanDuel. Nah, Scott's definitely a FanDuel guy. He freaking crushes over there all the time. He's also a DraftKings guy. It doesn't matter. But yeah, hopefully one day we can. But unfortunately, as of right now, we don't have it. I might try one day to take on FanDuel, but it feels like a lot. This Wizards team, with Bradley Beal coming back, I'm less interested in them. I took a few shots on Porzingis while Bradley Beal was out. Didn't really come through too many times. It's just rough. It's just rough. So yeah, ultimately, I'm not too interested in this Wizards team with Bradley Beal coming back. Of course, like I'll definitely still have some exposure to them, but I'm not really interested in increasing any of them. SGA, on the other hand, has been an absolute beast this season. I thought like, Giddey was going to be a guy. Like I really thought Giddey has had some strong performances. He's had like at least 46 points in his last 2 out of 4 performances, but still, like I really thought Giddey was going to have more ownership on this team, but it's really been SGA. Giddey's definitely still a strong tournament option. If his shot's falling, we can attack him like hell, but SGA is really the guy on this team that I would focus on primarily. Outside of that, Poku, Jalen Williams, they definitely have some upside as well. But really, the rotation's tough to trust. And so this is probably a situation I won't have as much exposure to. Yes, we'll love that. Put some pressure on Scott Thomas. Tell him that, hey, I would love for any and every coach to come and join me. I love that, man. That'd be so much fun. All right, next game. We have the Miami Heat against the Toronto Raptors. I know the Raptors crushed our hearts and souls last time out, and I'm still recovering. You're too popular, man. You're too popular. With the Raptors, there's a ton of question marks. We have Gary Trent Jr. questionable, Fred VanVleet questionable, Pascal Siakam is still out. So I'm willing to go back here. I think there's going to be low exposure on this game. I'm willing to take some shots here from a GPP standpoint, depending on the injury news. Of course, guys like OG Anunoby and FVV and Gary Trent are probably like the guys I would target the most, depending on the injury news. But that's where I'm at as of right now. On the Miami Heat side of things, Tyler Hero is still out. Jimmy Butler has definitely been performing well with Tyler Hero out, so more than happy to attack him here. I'm more interested in learning if Bam Adebayo is going to be in or out, though. If Bam is out, man, am I going to have a lot of Jimmy Butler. There's a lot of spots like this and a lot of studs where I'm just like, if the right injury news drops, we could be on to something good. Dez, appreciate you, man. Thad Young is still a viable center for value. I would wait and see what happens with the starting lineup and check out for the pre-lock show. I'll dig into the Thad Young situation a little bit more. I to be honest with you, with it still being so early in the day and still waiting on injury news and starting lines and stuff like that, I haven't really looked into Thad Young in particular too much. Tattooed Freaka said FanDuel on me. I had all my lines ready and they can't say I couldn't my location, so never got to play FanDuel last night. That's tough, man. That is tough. That is really tough. Sorry that happened to you, man. Moving on to the Miami Heat side, like I already said, really would love Jimmy Butler if Bam is out. Of course, you can always go back to guys like Max Strus and Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin. They're your streaky shooters. And more so for when it comes to them, I'm just going to let the DS decide how much exposure I get. They can pop off on any slate, and they can destroy you on any slate. All right. Now, when it comes to the Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks, this is a game that should stay close and should be a good game and a fun game to watch. From a DFS standpoint, though, these are more just like tournament options for me. And I'm really more so just interested in the studs on this team. I know Al Horford finally had a good game the other night, but with some of the other center options, I don't think I'll have a ton of Al Horford, but we'll see. Trae Young, GPP option. When Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are healthy, I just let the DS decide how much exposure I get, and usually I'm close to matching the field or underweight, so I'm fine with that. Talked about Tatum's upside. Jaylen Brown came back last game and was back like he never returned to the rotation and was back like he never left. He crushed, and he made the Nuts lineup too. So Jaylen Brown, he's been in the spot for a while. I don't really over focus on him too much when their team is healthy. And Marcus Smart's probable. Nothing really stands out too much. So he remains a GPP option only for me. Anything else interesting in this game? Not too much. Nice, OJ. Okay, so I'm glad the DS did like Terrence Davis. I just had all snowflakes in my line. Hey, and that's the thing. Trust the DS when it's working for you like that. Like for me, when I was doing my back testing, Terrence Davis wasn't popping. But that's the thing. Like I'm totally fine with things being a little bit different for everyone, or else we would have the exact same lineups. So it is what it is. I live with it. Moving on. So yeah, that's this game. Nothing too special, nothing too crazy. When we get to the Nuggets game, that's the game I'm really looking forward to. All right, Bulls versus Pelicans. Bulls are never too exciting when they're all healthy, and as of right now, they're all healthy. The New Orleans Pelicans, Zion Williamson is questionable. They're coming off of a back-to-back, but if Zion Williamson is out, I don't care if they're coming off a back-to-back. We were right about CJ McCollum last night, which was nice. I'll figure out who has the best matchup in this game. If I had to guess, it would probably be Brandon Ingram, but I think they might have a tough matchup either way. But if Zion Williams is out, I definitely want to have some exposure to this team. Valanciunas hurt a lot of people last night. I didn't get to Giannis Valanciunas. I talked about it on the pre-lock show yesterday. His minutes have been so freaking volatile. It was hard for me to predict. And so I ultimately just didn't get there. But I think we can consider going back to him again if Zion is out. I was doing some digging into his game logs and trying to find some logic into his minutes. And it looks like on back-to-backs, typically one game he'll see below 20 minutes, and then there's another game where he'll see like roughly mid-20s when it comes to minutes. The only concern I have about that is that trend ended over the last 3 games where he hasn't seen more than 20 minutes over the last 3 games. Oddly enough, the last time he saw more than 20 minutes was in this exact matchup. Long story short, I typically don't buy into they'll need this big out there to guard this big, but it looks like that's kind of what they're doing when it comes to Valanciunas. And so tonight, he'll be facing Nikola Vucevic, and I think they'll need his size. So Valanciunas is someone that wasn't on yesterday, more interested in today. Probably easier for me to say since I didn't feel the burn on him there, but something to consider for sure. All right, next game up, we have the Cavaliers against the Bucks. Yeah, I was playing around earlier with some things. That's why Giannis was locked. Long story short, when it comes to the Cavaliers, Jared Allen is out, and then we have Donovan Mitchell questionable. That is huge. If Donovan Mitchell is out, we can load up on Darius Garland. Ton of upside there. Darius Garland is super expensive now, guys. He's $9,000. I don't know if y'all remember back when he was like 5,000 something or 65,000. But he's worth it, I guess. If Donovan Mitchell's out, he's definitely worth it. If he's in, less excited about it. Like I mentioned, Jared Allen is out. I think that makes this a little bit easier of a matchup for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And yeah, we're getting to that Kevin long lost love for all the money tonight. Kevin Love's looking like this could be a smash spot for him as well. I even like Evan Mobley too, if Donovan Mitchell's out. So the Cavaliers are a team that I'm personally interested in. Kevin Love is interesting really no matter what, whether Donovan Mitchell's in or out. But Giannis Antetokounmpo is someone that I'm really excited about because on paper, this matchup looks awful, but with Jared Allen out, this matchup's actually much, much easier. If you guys watched basketball a few years ago, back when the Cavaliers had LeBron James and they were in the playoffs, you saw it clear as day. Kevin Love is not a great defender. He never really has been. I think he's improved with time, but he still is not going to be able to handle Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I low-key like Giannis tonight at low ownership. I don't think I'll have to go too crazy to get over the field, but hopefully that doesn't become too popular. He is stupid expensive, and we'll have to tear the Cavs a new one. And sorry, Scott. I know you're a Cavs fan, man, but I'm hoping it gets ugly for them tonight. I would love this spot even more if Jrue Holiday is out. He's questionable. Pat Connaughton is also questionable. Outside of that, not too interested in the other Bucks. This is, but the one thing that I have to keep reminding myself is that this matchup will be easier on paper if more guys are out for both sides. Like if Jrue Holiday is out, that's an easier matchup. And if Donovan Mitchell's out, that's an easier matchup. And with Jared Allen being out, that's already a much easier matchup because he's a really good defender. All right, moving on. We have the Rockets against the Dallas Mavericks. This game could be a really big deal if some of these guys end up being out. So according to Underdog, Luka Doncic is a potential rest candidate. They played yesterday off of back-to-back. Spencer Dinwiddie is also a potential rest candidate. JaVale McGee is TBD, and Davis Bertans is still injured. So Doncic or Dinwiddie, if one of them are out tonight, you're definitely playing the other one. Against the Rockets, there's really not a question there. If both of them are out, might have to bring Mr. DFS back, play some Reggie Bullock, play some Dorian Finney-Smith, things with Tim Hardaway. Things would definitely get fun. Also, Christian Wood, revenge game narrative. Guys, I'm a sucker for Christian Wood. I played him last night. I don't think he did too well. But I'll be willing to go back against the Rockets. They're not a great team defensively. Willing to go back there. So definitely some things to consider here. If the injury news breaks a certain way. And as you guys can tell, that's been a trend in a lot of these games. So, like, definitely keeping the slate interesting for sure. All right, the Knicks are coming off of a back-to-back. Mitchell Robinson is still out. Hartenstein crushed our hearts and souls yesterday, but Jericho Sims actually played well. My guy Mutt, who's also a coach here at DFS Army, was really excited to play Jericho Sims. He really wanted Jericho Sims to start, but unfortunately Jericho Sims did not start, but still did well. So I doubt I'll be getting to Hartenstein, but I might. I might still, but I doubt it. More than likely, what's actually interesting here is that my guy, Nikola Jokic, he's hurt. He's going to be out for a good chunk of time. And so that makes this Nuggets team, it means for once, I'm playing other guys not called Jokic on this Nuggets team. So you can already tell guys like DeAndre Jordan are popping, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, all have the most exposure to Gordon, Porter, Murray. And then I'll have the most exposure to whoever has the lowest ownership when we get closer to lock. But I'll be high on all of these guys. It just makes a ton of sense with the highest usage guy on their team being out. DeAndre Jordan, of course, he's not a high minutes guy, so there's definitely some risk there, but still should be a relatively safe play with Jokic out. Also, I feel like they're probably going, yeah, okay, we have Zeke, Najee. All right. So yeah, definitely Bruce Brown is even considerable, but I'm not super excited about him. But yeah, this game's really interesting on the Nuggets side of it. When it comes to the Knicks, I'm not as excited about the Knicks. They're coming off of a back-to-back. We saw Brunson have a really good game last night. He's priced where he should be, so he's not like a super value or anything like that, but you can definitely consider him in this game. Julius Randle also has upside for days, but had a really tough night last night. This matchup will be easier for him and whoever is playing center with Jokic out. It will definitely be a better matchup for them. So definitely a game we want to consider. All right, this last game of the slate, we have the Suns against the Warriors. This one is another one that's more of just like a really good game. Chris Paul is out. No, Chris Paul is questionable. He's not out. But if Chris Paul is out, Kenny Graham asks, how many Nuggets is too many tonight? I'll have to run the DS and see how many I'm getting, and then I'll create a rule and just see what the lines look like. I'll have to trust the DS a little bit on that. But then if I'm getting too much, then I'll create a rule. And we can talk about that on the pre-lock show too. Oh yeah, so the pre-lock show will be later today at 5:30. Should probably talk about that. That's only for VIP members. To become a VIP member, you can click the link in the description, join DFS Army, become a member. By becoming a member, you have access to the Discord, all of our cheat sheets, all of the coaches. Really good way of getting access to just some really good content and some really great coaches as well. So really recommend that. But on the pre-lock show, we dig into using the DS and what I'm doing on this slate. So definitely recommend checking that out and going from there. But let's talk about this last game so we can wrap this up. Chris Paul is questionable. If Chris Paul is questionable, I'm more interested in Devin Booker. Devin Booker is a superstar in this league, and he's only 9,200. 9,200 isn't cheap by any means, but when you are the only superstar on a team, I'm willing to pay up for that. And some people feel like 9,200 is too expensive to pay up for Booker, but honestly, I don't feel like it is. When he's the only guy on this team, his usage increases by a ton, so I'm more than willing to go back to that. DeAndre Ayton, still really cheap value for a center, and he's been okay. Like, he's really just been like supporting your lineups by just doing enough. He hasn't really been bad more often than not. So you can definitely consider him in your lines as well. Steph Curry, of course, has upside for days. This game, especially if Chris Paul plays, should stay close and be a really good game to watch. And so I prefer to play Steph Curry in situations like that where a game's going to stay close and it's going to stay competitive, and they're going to need him to shoot threes. So Alex, yeah, of course, like, Biggs against the Hornets, man. You didn't have to ask. But yeah, outside of that, when the Warriors are all healthy, no one really stands out too much, but I do like Curry as like a GPP tournament flyer play. All right, guys. Well, that was this slate. I appreciate you guys for watching. Tomorrow is Thursday. Keg will join, so you guys should definitely check in for that. And look forward to seeing you guys later today on the Pre-Lock Show. Thanks for watching.